What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyberius D, and I hope you are enjoying the new intro. I'm very, very happy with it. We were doing one there for a quick minute, but it turned out it didn't work, so we're actually re-recording this one. But without further ado, today we're going to be talking about Laos, or Laos. I've been told it's pronounced both ways. The funny thing is the Laos part was actually told to me by someone who lives there, so I'm not really going to fight about it. But in a general sense, we're going to be following up Vietnam with this particular episode, and we're going to be talking about Laos. It's going to be a quick episode. I don't know a lot of details outside of just the general overview here, so we're just going to hammer at it real quick, and we'll just, have something for you guys to watch real quick for today, and, catch us out for the coming episodes here as we go. Okay, let's get into it. Geography. The climate for Laos kind of sucks. This is the general outlook that we have, is that this is a very, very tropical area, and we've already talked about tropical areas and how they really tend to suck. You do have temperate zones largely in the north, but the problem is that the northern lands are actually the crappier lands, and so it's not that it isn't tropical and that it's a good place to build out. It's actually tropical because it's really hilly, and it actually is one of those deals to where it's more temperate in these zones because of the fact that it is at a higher elevation and it changes the weather patterns because of the topography of the general region versus, hey, this is actually a good place to build out. And we'll jump to the next slide real quick just to show you. And this is the general region. All the nice places that are on that map to live as far as a climatological perspective are the worst places to live on a topographical perspective. Is that this area is very much just a tropical area of the world, and geographically it's hemmed in. There's two real problems here, geopolitically speaking, for Laos that we have to address. Number one is that most of Laotian homeland at this point is the areas in the north that have largely become, if you will, kind of like a mountainous fortress where people have really hard times penetrating in, and so they've been occupied and invaded time and time again, but they're mountainous peoples. They tend to be pretty persnickety, they hold on to the general area, and sooner or later they just make whoever's invading or whoever's occupying just so much of a pain for them that they pack the crap up and leave. And so whether it was China or an imperial power such as France or what have you, that's kind of the general norm for Laos. Here's the problem, though. The Laotians have tried to come into the river valleys to the south time and time again to basically build out what we think of as a modern industrial infrastructure and a modern geopolitical institution. Nice, good river basin, start building up capital and access. But there's two problems here. Number one is that they have no open access to the sea. It is a landlocked nation, which, for any kind of real power that we've talked about, that's not the case, because just putting it in a very distinct way, being landlocked really, really sucks. And it's pretty much a guarantee that you're not going to be a major power. The other side of this is actually, you may see this on this map, is that the best lands to actually build out a modern infrastructure in Laos is the borderlands. That is literally the river border between that and Thailand is, to a large degree, the area where Laos would build out a core, or should be able to, but it's shared with Thailand. And you can actually tell that this is a serious problem because the capital city of Laos literally borders Thailand. And so the reality here, geopolitically speaking, is very sad for the Laotians, is that in the event that they want to become a strong or at least competent geopolitical actor, particularly in this region, all the lands that they need are Thai, and they would have to launch a campaign or a war or some kind of diplomatic negotiation to take those lands from the Thai or to have them returned to them. And that involves war and colonization and all this shit. But the reality is that without getting into the Mekong River Valley and being able to build out from there, you can pretty much write off Laos as a functioning geopolitical entity. It only exists here in the same way that Afghanistan exists to some degree, is that it's really hard and really expensive to police these general areas. And so you can have person after person or empire after empire come through here, take it over, but sooner or later that cost doesn't make it worth it, and they tend to ditch out, and the Laotians come right back to where they were. And they've been bled a little bit here and there, but the real people that they have had to deal with, and granted I'm not a historical expert in this regard, but the people that they most likely have to contend with is the Vietnamese which they're doing their own thing on the other side, basically, of of the mountain range, and particularly the Thai. Now, the Thai, from what I understand, have largely been a people that are more situated under the area known as Bangkok, and they've been building out slowly and surely. And what basically has happened here is that the Thai have built out a far more geopolitically secure entity, and so the hinterlands or the borderlands they've been able to get up into, and the natural area for the Laotians to build out their own place has largely been either taken over or subjugated by the Thai. And so what we're seeing here, and this is just normally what we see in history, is that we entered the era that we're in where the Thai basically just haven't wiped out the Laotian people. And I'm not advocating genocide or anything. What I'm getting here is that what we usually see is that eventually when you get to the state where the Laotian people are, is that more often or not, they get hemmed into a geopolitical point to where they start dying out as a people. And while their population density is getting better, we'll talk about that, their ability to activate as a geopolitical unit is not there. So let's tag into that real quick. Laotians have been able to kind of ride out basically the post World War II boom, and you can definitely see it's slowed down a significant bit. This is not good for a nation or Southeast Asian nation of only 7.4 million people. They've got way too many adversaries. They need to be able to bring that human capital to bear against not only their enemies, but their any kind of labor effort or geopolitical effort that they want to do. We're talking about basically a country that is literally the population of Indiana. And the problem is it doesn't work against their neighbors. And the reason why they have this population problem is, geopolitically speaking, they just can't build it out. They don't have that river basin, that area to build out what we think of as a modern nation state that, is going to support itself and contain itself and give these folks a place to build out into the future. And just kind of addressing this head on, because we're not going to be doing a history and futures episode, Laos is probably boned unless they completely change the tables here. And that's going to require taking land from Thailand and giving them a homeland in the Mekong River Valley that they can actively call their own and they can actively support and defend. And that's not likely to be the case. So let's knock it out real quick. This is their GDP and their numbers. Granted, it's been growing over the past while. The 2008 recession barely hurt. COVID didn't even hardly touch Laos in some degree. But here's the reason. It's incredibly poor. It's literally almost doesn't have a place to go lower to. And we can talk about that in the final slide here, which is we're talking about a place that still makes, $2,500. And even if you're going to go with PPP, which I would be very careful about, particularly with this one, they're probably not pulling more than $5,000 a year, and it's probably more like $4,000. And so, in a general sense here, is that this is an impoverished people in an impoverished land that doesn't have the ability to build out a geopolitical entity that is sustainable, long-lasting, and effective. And so, to a large degree, Laos is just screwed. We haven't really got to a country that I've just been able to write off as screwed, but as part of the viewer requests, Laos is absolutely just doomed. And if I'm going to give a prognosis to the Laotian folks, is that over the next 100 to 200 years, we're probably going to see not only the end of Laos proper, but we'll see the slow erosion of the Laotian people to where they'll probably be outright subjugated or outright melded into the Thai people. Sometimes that's way quicker than normal. If the area of imperialism comes back, we might see the Thai just run a gambit into the region. But the long story short here is that if any historical trend were to follow suit, I don't expect a good future for Laos, if a future at all, is that they're probably hemmed in. They're probably not going to be able to build out a functional geopolitical entity without serious losses and casualties. And that's not a fight they can win. Not without a serious foreign backer that is willing to put up the capital and the fight for them and basically allow Laos to prosper under their aegis. And I don't know who is going to do that. It would have to be somebody that hates the Thai, willing enough to screw the Thai over, but also somebody who can actually reach into the region and basically control it for the better part of 30 to 40 years while Laos turns into a developed nation of some sort. The only people that could even possibly do that is China, and I don't really think China has that kind of interest. So, I'm sorry that is going to be a quick one. We're only going to break about 10 minutes, but if you like this particular episode or you want to check out all my other stuff, feel free to do so. This has been Country Spotlight with Laos. Feel free to check out all the other stuff that I've done, particularly in this video series. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and all the wonderful things. Without further ado, it's been great. We'll catch you next time, guys.